So there's two townships in Michigan that voted no to these billion-dollar data centers that are proposed here. Now, one of them got sued and they lost, and the project's moving forward. And the other one, well, they actually had a positive outcome and it's on hold for now.
What happened there? Please do the right thing.
Now, the only difference in these two outcomes comes down to something that most small towns don't even know about until it's too late. So if you're thinking about moving to Michigan, or honestly, if you're already living here and you want to know about these data centers, then you're going to want to stick around for this video. All right, so this is part two, and if you missed part one, I'll link it down below. Go watch it after this. But here's the quick version. Okay, Michigan passed a bunch of tax incentives in 2024 to attract these data centers, okay, making it seem like it's all positive stuff. In Saline Township, which is a little farming community with like 2,300 people just south of Ann Arbor, they got targeted for over a $7 billion OpenAI facility. Okay, it's a massive facility. Now the data center is going forward, whether the residents like it or not. But here's the thing, that's not the whole story, because while all this was happening in Saline Township, another data center proposal landed about 45 minutes north in Howell Township, which is like 10 minutes from my house. So yeah, these things hit home for even residents like myself. And before I get into the new updates I have for you in this video, I do want to clear something up from part one, which is the difference between Saline Township and the city of Saline. Okay, these are not the same place. Now, the city of Saline is its own thing. Okay, it's got about 9,000 people in it, nice little downtown. That is the downtown version of Saline when I talk about Saline. Okay, the township does not have a downtown. Okay, it's wraps around kind of the southwest side of the city. It's way more rural. It's only about 2,300 people, and it's a totally separate municipality, meaning the board and the local officials are completely separate from the city of Saline. All right, so I just wanted to clarify that for anybody watching, because if you are in the Saline School District and you're moving there right now, you may be about 5 to 7 miles away from this, or even further, to be honest with you. So just look at the location and actually understand where the data center is and how that relates to the township and municipality. So let's get back to the Howell project, because this one is absolutely massive. Okay, we're talking over 1,000 acres of farmland going into a data center. Okay, this is a $1 billion facility, which frankly, I don't understand how they're pricing these things. The one in Saline was on 525 acres. That was supposed to be $7 billion. This one in Howell's on over 1,000 acres, and it's over $1 billion, which some estimates said it could be closer to $9 billion. So I'm not really sure on what the actual budget for this data center was. And the word was that it was backed by Meta. Okay, now this is the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, that Meta. And this appeared to be the same playbook as Saline, right? The developer comes in, they make a bunch of promises and jobs and tax revenue and ask the township to rezone all this agricultural land. And just like Saline, the residents were totally against it. Okay, they got 3,700 people to sign the petition. The planning commission meeting went for 7 hours. Okay, I'm gonna say that again, 7 hours. People were taking time off of work to show up and tell Meta that we do not want this project here. We do not want a data center in Howell. But the Howell Planning Commission voted unanimously to deny the rezoning, okay? Unlike Saline, which voted 4-1 to deny it. And then the township board passed a 6-month moratorium on any new data center applications, okay? I'm gonna come back to the moratorium. That's gonna be very important in this story as well. And then the developer went and withdrew their application to rezone everything, okay? They just pulled the whole entire thing. They're like, we're not fighting this, we're out. But let's not be too naive, okay? The developer said they wanted to honor the moratorium and they wanted to give the community time to figure things out, which, okay, I get it. But more than likely, they're just waiting for the politics behind this whole thing to kind of shift, or the board to kind of turn over. But Howell did something genius and they bought themselves some time, which Saline really never had. So the question you might be asking yourself is why? Like, why did this turn out different for Howell than it did for Saline Township? And this is the part that I think every single small town in Michigan really needs to understand and start gravitating towards, because what happened in Saline Township wasn't just bad luck. Okay, the developer didn't sue because they were upset about the vote. Okay, they sued for a very specific legal argument. It's called exclusionary zoning. So here's how this works in Michigan. If your township has a zoning category on its master plan called industrial zoning, but you actually don't have any land zoned for it at the moment, okay, if somebody goes to change it and wants industrial zoning, that could be considered exclusionary. And that is the argument here. Okay, the argument is basically you're pretending to allow this, but you've made it impossible in practice. So Saline Township did have an industrial zoning classification, but there was no land actually zoned industrial in the township. So when they denied the rezoning, the developer came to the lawyers and said, hey, you're actually violating state law. So the township's attorney looked at this thing and basically said, yeah, you're probably going to lose this one. And there was a case up north in northern Michigan where the township got hit with like a $50 million judgment in the zoning dispute. Okay, $50 million for a township of 2,300 people. It's going to bankrupt them. So these townships end up settling, not because they want to, not because they thought the data center was a good idea, because they felt like they had really no choice. And one of the board members that I talked to literally said, and I'm paraphrasing here, there was nothing we could do about it. It was either a data center or the landowner said we were going to turn it into solar farms. And that alone should bother you to your core, whether you care about data centers or not. All right, so here's what actually matters out of this situation, and here's what we've learned thus far, because there are things that communities can do to prevent this. You know, they just have to do them before the developers show up knocking on their front doors. And the first one, which I know sounds backwards, is actually start zoning some land industrial. Okay. And I know this sounds counterintuitive, but if you've got an industrial category in your zoning code with no land attached to it, you're exposed to that exclusionary zoning argument. So find some small parcels that make sense, away from neighborhoods, maybe near existing commercial stuff, zone it industrial, and close that loophole. The second thing is pass a moratorium right now before you actually need it. Howell Township did this. They put a 6-month pause on any new data center applications. You know, the city of Saline did this. They put a year pause on any new data center applications. Okay, this is going to give you time to study the issues, develop regulations around this, figure out what you actually want. But here's the real thing. But you can't do this after the data center proposals are already on the table. Okay, courts are going to look at that differently. Has to be proactive. And third, you really need to start creating some data center specific regulations for your township or municipality. Saline Township just did this a few weeks ago. Okay, they passed an ordinance that says data centers can only go on land that are already zoned industrial or commercial revitalization. Okay, special permits are required they have noise standards, they have water use requirements. Get all that stuff on the books before you need it. And fourth, update your master plan. You know, Michigan courts give a lot of weight to master plans for townships and cities. If your plan says that an area is supposed to stay agricultural or low density residential, that's actual evidence supporting your zoning decisions. Okay, if you haven't looked at your master plan in 10 years, now's the time to do so. And fifth, our communities need to start organizing a lot earlier. Now, luckily, Howell had 3,700 petition signatures ready to go. Now, Augusta Township, a different community, similar situation, they collected enough signatures to put their data center rezoning on the ballot. Okay, votes are going to be decided in early 2026. Now, that kind of organized pushback changes the math for developers. Okay, they want easy wins, and that's why they're targeting a lot of these small townships to begin with. They don't want 7-hour meetings and ballot initiatives of angry residents at every township board meeting for the next 2 years. And look, you guys, I am not a lawyer. I actually sell homes for a living, but I've been following this closely, and the patterns are pretty clear. The towns that act before these proposals are on the table, they end up having options. Okay, the towns that wait, they end up like Saline Township. And I got to say this part too, because it's kind of the elephant in the room. The state of Michigan allowed this to happen in so many different ways. Okay, they passed tax incentives. Okay, they rolled out the red carpet for these data centers. Governor Whitmer's out there calling these projects the biggest investment in state history. And look, I get it from Lansing's perspective, like billions of dollars coming into Michigan seems like a good thing. Thousands of jobs, Michigan competing with areas like Texas and Virginia for the AI economy. That all sounds great in press releases. But here's what those headlines miss. Okay, the benefits may seem statewide, but the costs are local. When data centers go into Saline Township, Michigan gets to brag about the overall investment, but the people who actually live in Saline and Saline Township, they get the construction traffic, they get the water usage, they get the changes to their community. And then when those residents show up and vote no, and then get told, sorry, there's nothing you can do about it because it's actually a loophole in the township based on a state law, well, I don't know. Guys, that just doesn't sit right with me. So let me bring this back to what this means for you, because I know you're sitting there watching, maybe sitting in like Austin or Phoenix or Tampa trying to figure out like if Michigan is actually different. Okay, is it worth uprooting your family and moving 1,500 miles? And here's my honest answer, you guys. Michigan is different for now. Okay, the small towns here actually feel like small towns. The communities are tight-knit and you know your neighbors. Okay, you can still buy a lot of nice properties on a lot of land without spending millions of dollars. But it does feel like the pressure is building, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. DTE has another 3 gigawatts of data center deals that are negotiating right now. Okay, that's on top of Saline Township. These projects are coming. Livingston County is getting them. Oakland County is getting them. Places all over Southeast Michigan are getting them. And frankly, they're already here. Okay. These are just the big scale ones that are taking shape right now. Michigan does have data centers that are already operational today. So the question isn't whether Michigan's perfect. Okay. It's not. Okay, nowhere is. The question is, are the communities you're looking at actually paying attention to what's going on with data centers and big tech here in the state? You know, have they started updating their zoning? Are people starting to organize? Do they have a plan? Because some towns are going to fight like hell and they're going to hold the line. And the reality is some aren't. And when you're choosing where to raise your family and where to put down some roots here in Michigan, that matters more than anything. Okay, it's not just about the home prices or the school ratings. It's what kind of community you're actually moving into and joining. So look, you guys, I made this video because I think you deserve to know what's actually going on here, not the press release version of this, not the Chamber of Commerce pitch, the real story. And honestly, I made it because I live here. Braden's my home and it's maybe my backyard. Like, these things are happening all around us. You know, Howell's only 10 minutes away. So if you're serious about relocating here to Michigan and you want to have an actual conversation about which communities make the most sense for you and your family, what's happening on the ground, and what areas are dealing with, well, let's talk. There's a link in the description down below to book a Zoom call with me. You'll never hear a sales pitch. You'll never hear any pressure. Just a real conversation about you, your goals, your priorities to help you find the ideal lifestyle right here in Michigan. And one more thing before I wrap this up, you know, the people of Saline Township and Howell Township, they are still fighting. Okay, the lawsuits are still pending. Environmental permits are getting renewed. Ballot initiatives are coming up. The story is not over, and I'm going to keep covering it. So if you want updates on this story and what it's like to live here in Southeast Michigan, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you're in a township that's dealing with this right now, or you know somebody, drop in the comments. I want to know what's happening in your community. So guys, that's it for now on this one. I'll see you on the next video.